Welcome back to another episode of the Jessica Ella podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Ella. I am Australia's leading women's trauma therapist and founder of Aruka Therapy. And today we're going to be talking about what really happens when you avoid the pain, because we have this idea that, if we just pretend that it's not there, that we're fooling everybody and that we're fooling ourselves. And we have this idea that if we don't go into it, we'll just be able to sort of push it down and keep managing. And there was a study that they did, and 85% of people would rather take something to either numb the pain or do something to help them have some sort of temporary relief from the pain or suffering or whatever it is that they're struggling with, anxiety, depression. And there was only 15% of people who actually were open to a long-term solution in order to actually transform that pain and that suffering. And this didn't surprise me one bit because the biggest obstacle that I come up against with people is that they follow and they intellectually understand what's happening. They intellectually understand what they're suffering with. And, they're like, I've got this belief and this limiting belief and I had this thing happen and I've got anxiety, and they know what their diagnosis are. And there is no shortage of information. But when it actually comes time to doing the work and to actually resolving it, there is a huge pullback. And it comes from this place of fear. It comes from the fear of the unknown, mostly. But it also comes from this perspective that it's going to be too hard to go into it. So we kind of like put it to the side. Like, that's a bit of a later project. I'll work on myself in the future, later. And this mentality causes us to actually collect the pain. And we think that we're doing a really good job, as I said, of actually avoiding it. But what's actually happening is that those emotions that we're not feeling are building in our body. I can't tell you the amount of women that come to me that say, I just hit my 30s and I got anxiety out of nowhere. And I'm like, hun, it's not out of nowhere. It's just because you haven't been feeling any of those feelings of anxiety that have been coursing through your body for a couple of decades now. And those feelings have been building because an emotion is just energy in motion. And if you don't express it or move it through your body, it's going to stay trapped within your body. And the more of those emotions you have, the more that they magnetize. And so we think that we're avoiding the pain and the suffering, but we're actually not. We're actually just recycling it. We're finding better ways of coping. And this is why so many people, the coping mechanisms that they have to avoid the pain eventually stop working. And so they have to find new ways and new ways. And so this 15% of people that actually go into it, the 15% of people that actually realize that a temporary solution is actually creating a debt in the long term, because temporary solutions in any aspect of life don't work. It's like, the way that I try and describe it to people is like, there's a lot of work, a lot of conversations at the moment happening around nervous system. Everyone's hearing about regulate your nervous system. And the equivalent to me of working on your nervous system is like going to the gym and just like working one arm. And like, you'll just get this really buff one arm, but the rest of your body is like completely useless. Nervous system regulation and feeling a little bit better and easing the anxiety in the moment when you're using the nervous system regulation tool is great, but it's not getting to the source of why you had such a dysregulated nervous system in the first place. It's not actually healing anything at a deeper level. And a lot of what we're actually being taught now in the healing industry are actually methods of coping, not methods of actually healing at the root. And so somewhere along the line, Instagram has a lot to do with this, but somewhere along the line, someone realized we can actually sell to people in the same way that we sell everything else in the world through desire. We can sell to them this quick fix solution of regulate your nervous system and you'll heal anxiety. I literally saw an ad the other day for a vagus nerve stimulator that promised to help you to lose 15 kilograms by stimulating your vagus nerve using this tool. And this is honestly what's wrong with the world. We're all looking for this quick fix. 85% of us statistically are looking for this quick fix, but we are, as I said, accumulating this debt because we're spending 10, 15, 20 years trying to find the quick fix and the magic solution when we could have actually gone in self-inquired and gone into ourselves and actually done the deeper work for, 6 months and completely transformed our lives. And this is where people think that they're saving time by doing these quick fixes and by avoiding the pain and by kind of going around it, but actually it's accumulating And it's wasting time in the long run because they're not actually changing. They're just masking the way that they're feeling. And so what happens when we avoid that pain, as I said before, for long enough, is that it catches up with us. And all of a sudden, we're at a rock bottom, or we've got this anxiety that's just gotten out of control, or this depression, and it hits us and we think that it's come from nowhere. And the thing that nobody says out loud is that it never comes from nowhere. It's not a potluck. It's not like you get anxiety, you get depression, you get OCD, you get like ADHD. These things are actually coming from a root cause. Like, they're coming from somewhere. There is a source that is creating these experiences, these diagnoses, or these cluster of symptoms that we call a diagnosis. And so when we avoid the pain, it's the same mentality again. If I use the gym, like if we continually avoid doing the work, we're not going to get more fit. It's in the same way that if we don't continually show up and work through those layers of resistance, and it's painful when you first start the gym. Like, every muscle is sore, and healing work is not dissimilar to that, in that it can feel really uncomfortable. If you've lived your entire life numbing everything, then it can feel really uncomfortable once we open you back up to feeling. And this is the thing. I had a reel recently, a carousel recently, that went bonkers. And I was talking about something that not a lot of people talk about, which is that when you start healing, you can sometimes feel worse before you feel better. And this is why the 15%, because that period where you feel worse, a lot of people believe that they can't handle that period of time. They believe, like, I won't be able to make it through. I won't be able to cope if I let all of these feelings out. If I go back into all of that shit that's back there, I won't be able to cope. I won't survive it. That's your subconscious mind trying to protect you. And it's not actually true. What happens is there is a period of time where it's uncomfortable. But this is where we need to be taught, and not enough people are teaching you how to actually hold your emotions. Like, when those emotions come up, how do you actually hold them? How do you actually fully experience them? How do you actually shift an emotion? And most people, if you're like, do you know how to hold an emotion? Do you know how to actually hold an emotion and allow it to transform? And do you know how to shift it somatically out of your body? Do you know how to move that energy? And nobody really understands how to do that. And so we're terrified. And what we're terrified of is a feeling. And a feeling is an energetic frequency. Like, we're literally terrified of a state that we can actually transform, but we avoid it. We avoid it like the plague because we think that we're going to get stuck there. And what happens, as I said, is people are going through their life using different things to numb themselves, whether it be scrolling through social media, whether it be somebody who's addicted to gambling, sex, drugs, a glass of wine at night to calm down, whatever it is. We've got these addictions and these ways that we numb ourselves and we cope with the stresses of everyday life or the feelings that we don't want to feel. And what happens is when we don't understand what's happening, we become afraid. And the more afraid we get, the further we move away from the work. And so what I try to explain to people is that once you start doing the work, you're potentially going to move out of numbness, and you're going to have to feel everything that you haven't felt. Because as you move up out of, if we think about the levels of consciousness, as you move up out of apathy, you're moving up into grief, and you're moving up into fear, and there's these other layers of emotions that are going to come up. That doesn't need to be so scary if you understand how to actually hold your emotions. And the best way that I can describe this, and I want today to be a bit more of like an educational, like how to, is we have to get, first of all, this understanding that the emotion is just an energy in motion. It's not permanent. It's not here to stay. And you actually do have control of it. You don't need to let some sadness spiral you down into a deep depression. You actually do have control over that. And for anyone who's watched the series called Shrinking, I highly recommend it. It's on Apple TV. I love, love, love it. They do this technique, which a lot of people have been doing for a long period of time, which is that you set a timer and you lay down and you feel your feelings for a set period of time. It's like a healthy way to get used to feeling your feelings without numbing them, without distracting yourself, and actually learning how to feel them, but also how to stop it at the end of that. The way that I like to do this is I set a timer, I lay down, I tune into my body, into like what I'm feeling. And sometimes there's an actual emotion, and sometimes there's physical tension. It might be like tightness in my neck or tightness in my jaw, or might be clenching my fists. And I'll lean into that. I'll lean into that sensation, and I'll actually allow the sensation to build, because below emotion is sensation. So I first focus on the sensation. And this is probably one of the most powerful things that you could learn, is that before your amygdala actually signals that, that there's a problem, before that alarm system goes off, the amygdala is an emotional alarm system. Before the amygdala is the brainstem. And the brainstem can actually hold shock from past experiences, and it can try to release that shock at any moment. You could just be like having the best day ever, and all of a sudden your brain decides like, now's a good time to release that shock from your body. If you don't know how to release that shock from your body at a sensation level, at a, nervous system, brainstem level, you'll quickly turn that shock into panic and potentially an anxiety and attack, or panic attack. And so what we need to be doing in this process is laying down and feeling first into the sensations that we feel in our body. So am I feeling tight? Am I feeling tense? Am I feeling restricted? Am I feeling hot? Am I feeling tingles? Like, what's the sensations that I'm feeling? And we need to be able to sit with those sensations and the uncomfortableness of those sensations for a period of time before we allow it to move into an emotion. Because this means that we're actually targeting it at a brainstem level before an emotional level. So we want to sit with those sensations. We want to allow those sensations to come. And the way that those sensations are going to resolve is through movement, because the brainstem is connected to our nervous system, which informs our entire body of like what to do and how to move. When we tap into that brainstem and when we tap into the sensations that we're experiencing, our body is going to want to move in a certain way. And if you've never done this before, it's going to sound super fucking weird, and you're going to be like, what the heck? I'm not going to lay down and just move my body in random ways. But I promise you, it is worth it. When you lay down and you tune into your body and you're like, there's tightness in my neck, and I can feel this sensation of like tightness and restriction, and you ask your body what it wants to do, allowing yourself to make that movement is not by accident. It's not woo, it's not random. This is your body learning to resolve the activation that's there. It's learning to regulate its nervous system. It's learning to resolve the shock that's coming from the brainstem. It's actually discharging this energy from your nervous system through movement. So it seems a little bit weird at the start, and like, to be honest, there's been times where I've done this practice and I've found myself just like moving my head from side to side and or like shaking just like my right hand, or doing something that feels super, super weird and unnatural. But once you lean into it, you can actually feel the shift in your body after you've allowed the sensation to move. I promise you, it's one of the most simplest, easiest, groundbreaking things that you can do. But what happens is once you tune into the sensations, and once you start actually moving your body and allowing your body to release from your nervous system and, at a somatic level, what it needs to shift, there can come a level of emotion. So you might start to notice that you have this tension in your neck and you're wanting to like move your head side to side. And after you're moving your head from side to side for a while, you might feel this wave of sadness, or you might feel some grief, or you might even see a past memory. There might be some just emotions that start coming up. After you've spent at least 5 minutes in the sensations, allow those emotions to come up. But again, have that timer set so that you can feel those emotions and stop and pull yourself out of it when the timer goes off. And this is the part that's really important. We think like, oh, we need to, if we're sad, we just need to keep crying and just let it all out. And or, if we're angry, we need to like scream into the pillow and keep screaming until we get all the anger out. But actually learning how to control your emotions and how to feel them in a window gives your body and your mind this sense of control, this fact that you have control over those emotions. It's implicit. You're unconsciously learning, I've got this, I've got control of this, to the point where now I can I can feel sadness coming up and be like, I've got a bit of sadness there. I'm going to feel that later on. And I can actually come back to it later because I know that I'm going to be able to feel it and tap back into it and know how to do that. I can just like get on with my day and it doesn't derail me. And so many women that I find through clinic are overwhelmed by their emotions. Like they're triggered and they're screaming or they're crying or they're screaming at their kids. They're reacting at their partner. They're shutting down. They're pushing someone away. They're doing all these unconscious things in their relationships, in their friendships, in their jobs. Like They're reacting emotionally because they have no control over their responses and over their emotions. This is where it starts to get really powerful. Like I can notice that someone says something and I'm like, oh, that made me feel a little bit rejected, or that made me feel a little bit sad. I'm going to look at that later and just continue on my way now. So it gives you this control over your emotions and control over essentially your mentality as well, because your emotions in your body a lot of the time, especially from that shock level, are what's telling your mind what's going on. We think that our mind is telling our body what to do, but actually 80% of information is from the body up. So when we're getting a little bit shaky because we drank too much coffee, our body is telling our mind, panic, panic, something's wrong. And our mind starts spiraling, trying to figure out what's wrong. But actually, we've just activated ourselves from a body level. We want to be able to sit down, feel this, lay down, feel the sensations. We want to allow the emotions to come up, and we want to set that timer. Now, what you do after that timer goes off and after the emotions have settled down is that you want to raise your vibration. You want to, like, at a frequency, energetic level, you want to raise it up, because you also want to teach yourself that after the bad, there can be some good. Because what happens is our brain starts to think like, I'm going to get stuck here and I'm just going to always be down here. And after I cried and let those emotions out, I felt shit for the rest of the day. Whereas if you're allowing those emotions to come out and then you're putting on your favorite song and you're dancing crazy around the house and you're like laughing at yourself, you're raising your vibration, and you're actually then teaching yourself that after the bad, the good can come, and after the low, I can bring myself back up, and I know how to do that. And it sounds like a little bit woo-woo maybe, but this is actually retraining your body, your nervous system, your fascia. Like, literally every part of your body stores memory, and the way that you move it and the way that you release through it, you're actually changing your biology. You're actually changing everything from, this is bottom up, this is body up. We're actually starting to change the way that our body functions. We're actually starting to change the way that we show up, and we show up with more confidence because we know that we've got this, because we know that we can actually, I can control my emotions now, and I can dive into what they mean later and feel them later. It gives us this level of, I always talk about women becoming unstoppable, and it gives us this feeling of being unstoppable because we've got it. We've got it under control. Like, we're not afraid of our emotions anymore. We've got a framework for how to feel them and how to experience them. And every single struggle that you have in life and everything that you're doing to avoid the pain is just to avoid those emotions. Once you're not afraid of your emotions anymore, like, fuck, that's like, that's unstoppable. Because once you're not afraid of your fear, you're going to just be able to step forward into whatever it is that you want to do. Once you're not afraid of your grief and you can feel it and fully experience it, you're not going to be afraid of feeling more grief. You're not going to be afraid of loss. You're not going to be afraid of heartbreak, because you're like, okay, my heart was broken, but I made it through, and I felt it fully, and I moved through it. And I'm not holding this experience where I'm like, I didn't cope and I'm still not coping from that heartbreak. You actually learn that you can actually hold those feelings. And so once you learn how to hold huge amounts of those lower feelings, and you're not afraid of them anymore, at the other side of that, the highs are so much higher, and you actually have the capacity to hold even more of the better feelings, because you're essentially widening like your bucket and your tolerance for what you can hold. So when you can hold this much grief, you can hold this much love. When you can hold this much grief, you can hold this much love, because you're protecting yourself from love. You're protecting yourself from more grief and from more hurt, because you can't cope with it. Once you can cope with this, you can cope with that, and we become more vulnerable, more open, more loving, more radiant, more powerful, more unstoppable. So stop avoiding the fucking pain. Stop avoiding the sensations. Stop avoiding the feelings. They're just feelings. They can't actually hurt you. They can't hurt you once you learn how to feel them properly. This was like me talking as fast as I can to try and smash out this episode, but this is what I cover in Triggered to Thriving in much more depth, because we've got 25 units across multiple hours of study, understanding what a trigger is, where it comes from, how to feel those emotions, how to elevate your emotions, how to work out why they were there in the first place. Where'd they even come from? Why you got so much grief? We got to figure out where all that came from so we can transform it. This is what we do in those 5 stages, 25 units across Triggered to Thriving. I highly recommend it. If you're just so sick of avoiding and numbing and, the short-term gratification, but that you're causing more problems in the long term, and you want to become unstoppable, you want to be able to hold it all, then that is the program for you. Thank you so much for listening today. A short, sharp, really fast, direct one. I'll see you in the next episode.